Hi everyone, welcome to my review of David Sandberg's Annabelle creation in 2017. So, this is another, film in the Conjuring universe, and it came out last year. I reviewed Annabelle, the first one, on my channel, and I thought that was an absolute disgrace. It was terrible in every way, and just a laughable horror film. Probably one of the worst horrors I've ever seen. Of course, that was panned though, so I didn't expect too much. This one is, of course, quite acclaimed. Decent acclaim for a horror film, and I looked forward to this one actually quite a bit. I thought it'd be interesting to see what they do. Of course, when it came out, I was a bit confused about how it fit into the timeline because there was already Annabelle was already a prequel to The Conjurings. Turns out this is a prequel to the prequel of Annabelle. So it's set before that. It's in 1955. It's set for the majority of the film, and before that I think is 43. You get like a prologue. Basically, this couple they lose their daughter Annabelle in an accident, and that kickstarts the film. And then it's obviously years later, and they allow these people to come to their home and stay. These orphans, 6 orphans, and then Sister Charlotte is that kind of looks after them, and they allow them to stay at their home, and it's basically about them unleashing this Annabelle doll and stuff again, and things haunting them. People get possessed, all this sort of stuff that happens, in this sort of stuff, and I was very, very impressed with this film actually, surprisingly. I looked forward to it, of course, but I didn't expect, it to be really, really good. And it was actually a really good film. And, it's quite as far as modern horrors go, unique, to an extent. But yes, it was actually very, very human. I thought I did actually care about the characters this time. And I think as well, just in terms of filmmaking, the horror was much better, in terms of, the cinematography and everything, and just the patience, with the build of tension, and just more sophisticated, not as cheap jump scares and all that. Of course, there is it's rare for a horror film to actually have no jump scares that are cheap, but there's a couple here, but not ones that really overall take away from the experience and taint it too much. But yeah, it does actually have some really, really great sequences of horror. And it's got some good characters as well. The orphans, they're mixed. I wouldn't say all of them are great characters. The main character, of Janice, I thought she was good for most of the film, and of course things happen to her throughout, halfway through in particular, and it's just, I think that Annabelle was a really, really awful film for me. I think this is a much better film, and definitely more of a worthy film to be considered in the Conjuring's universe. Because the Conjuring 1 and 2 are just stunning films. I think they're both great horrors. I think 2 is even better than 1, and that's at times it's not far off being a masterpiece. But this film, it is really good. I wouldn't call it great. It has flaws. But yeah, I really loved the character of Samuel as well. The Mullins, they're the kind of the old couple that let these orphans into their home. And the character of Samuel is really, really well written character, I feel. You could kind of feel his pain and his loss, his experience and stuff. And also just kind of a warm character at times as well. It kind of shine. It comes through very subtly at times, and just very mysterious. You don't really know his full intentions throughout. Most of the film, which is really good. It's kind of, it's a much better, a massive step up from the characters in the first Annabelle. They were awful, and there was nothing to them. I think it was John as well. The main character of John was just, when I think worst characters in a horror film, I think of him straight away. That's how bad he is. But these characters, I wouldn't say any of these characters really were bad in this film, which is good. Some of them weren't great, but certainly this character of Samuel was really great. Miranda Otto is in this film as well, plays his wife. I won't ruin what happens, but it's very, after their loss, of course, things have changed over these 12 years. I really liked how that they kind of developed that. It was mysterious at first, but then things soon came clear, and it was really, Really well done. And actually, I really loved the bit where it flashbacked to what actually happened and how the doll kind of it came about with the doll and what happened there. It comes in the final act. That exposition. I thought that was really good. Very very human. I felt very very nice. And yeah, nice. This is this kind of sums up a lot of the film. It's just very peaceful. At the beginning, and it's just kind of a nice little film. In that sense, and it's not mean spirited. And just kind of quite warm. The cinematography I think is really really good. I loved how it obviously, yeah, it kind of like a sense of nostalgia to it a bit. For the colour tones and everything. The actual location I think was great. Really really nice location. And the actual, I think as well the way that the house is used for the different sequences in the horror. Especially in the final act, are really good. Just the way the house is designed for this horror is great. And yes, most of the film does take place in and around the house. That's great. It's nice and confined. And mounts up the tension in that sense. It really it's a claustrophobic film at times, horror. I think that's great. I think the score was really good as well. But this is really scary actually. There's a couple of moments where my heart kind of felt like it stopped at times. It really gets you. Annabelle, the first one, wasn't scary. Mainly because it was just so bad, and there was nothing I could take seriously. But even then, it was very underwhelming, and I'm not someone who needs, complete shock throughout and stuff and horror. But I can actually be fine with a film that kind of just builds tension without revealing till the final act. And that's fine with me if it's horror. But Annabelle just kind of didn't deliver throughout any of it, and it was just awful. This one really has a very very gradual build to it, and but there's plenty of scares in that throughout. Really really scary. As I say. The final act not so much, but that's kind of expected with a lot of horrors. They never usually pull off perfectly the final act, because the bigger it gets in that sense of the horror, the less scary it is, and the more faces and stuff that's revealed, and the actual designs and and stuff like that, the more it kind of loses the sense of dread and everything. But it done, compared to most horrors, I think now it done a really good job overall. But it did suffer a little bit in the final act. In that sense, but the direction I think overall is really really good. Sandberg done a really good job. I think this is actually a lot better than I thought it'd be. It's got, as I said, it's got good, decent reviews, but not that good. I would say it's a really good film. It's a lot better than the first, of course. It's not as good as The Conjuring 1 and 2, of course not, but it's like a worthy kind of spin-off, you could say, where Annabelle wasn't the first one. And yeah, as I say, I got invested in these characters. Good relationships and stuff, compelling stuff, and the filmmaking is just really really good here. I think there's actually a couple of great sequences. Just the way that it builds horror, builds the tension, and doesn't always do full on cheap jump scares. But the stuff that you see loads of different things early on, but it's kind of to build the dread, the sense of dread in the atmosphere. And I think that's what horror films should do. At first they shouldn't just bombard you with jump scares, cheap ones. And as well, I think the actual way it's edited is great. It's just really really times great filmmaking. The final act, as I've said, it does let it down. What it does in the final act is I think it's a bit too repetitive with some of the things that go on. And I really didn't like some of the way things turned out. It's a bit inconsistent with the. Yes, as I said, the most of the film does have heart, and then it's kind of like a cold ending where some of the characters act a little bit out of place. I didn't think they would have done that kind of thing. But yeah, and the actual ending really pissed me off because it, as you would expect, they kind of carry it on to Annabelle, the first one, and they just replay it basically a scene from the first one, and I didn't want to be reminded of that film really. And as well, it just kind of took away a little bit from the ending of this because it kind of felt like this film's a footnote to to Annabelle and stuff, and it doesn't really mean much on its own. It's just, you know, I don't think prequels should do that. You know, yeah, I didn't like the ending, and then there's a kind of a cheap end credit scene. You know, I can't really comment for that, but it was like a 10-second clip. But I think basically to tease the Nun that comes out, you know, that's coming out this year. Yeah, it was pointless, really. A lot of end credit scenes are though, of course. But yes, overall, I think this is really good stuff. You know, it's not got the best final act, but overall, I think you know, this is a really good film. I think I'll give this film an 83%. You know, I think it's really good. I was really enjoying the relationships and everything that was going on. The characters, you know, the sister in this film, you know, that looks after them. I really liked her. I thought she's a really warm character throughout most of the film, and yeah, I just really enjoyed how she kind of looked out for them and stuff. I definitely think the first 2/3 are a lot better than the last, but you know, it's not a weak final act at all. It's just it's not as good as the rest of the film. You know, as well, the actual opening, the prologue, I would say wasn't perfect. You know, I was kind of thinking, oh, it's just like the first one, bit, you know, bad melodrama really, in some ways, and just a bit generic. But then, you know, when that thing did happen, you know, of course, you know, it was quite, you know, it was really good, of course, and most of the actual film was really good. At times, it had some great moments actually as well. The cinematography, direction, editing throughout really is really good. The soundtrack I like as well, and I love how they developed the old couple's story and as well the exposition and everything, and just the mystery they kept. I also really like the creature designs, really scary, and just yeah. There's a bit, you know, in the final act where they kind of revealed a bit too much, but generally they really they kind of restrained a lot of stuff really cleverly, you know, for most of the film, which made it even more scary, you know. And yeah, I just really like this film. Better than I expected it to be. Not great, you know, but it definitely very impressive horror film that I really did like a lot. So yeah, thanks for watching my review. Definitely, you know, if you've not seen if you've seen the the first Annabelle and you thought, you know, what is this? You're not alone. And yes, this one is a lot better, and you probably could enjoy this quite a lot, even, you know, if you didn't like the first. It's not like that. It's completely different, you know, and it's yeah, I think it's a worthy kind of spin-off to The Conjurings. So yes, thanks for watching my review of Annabelle Creation.